Hello my friends, the news are not so good for Russians. The last night it was one of the most massive strikes of Ukrainian drones on Russian infrastructure and the Novorossiysk port in particular. A portal to hell was opened and I'm gonna show you pictures in this video of course, and here are the NASA firm's satellites that detected the fire, both in the harbor of Novorossiysk and Grushovaya Balka, the place with most of the Russian oil storages. If we go to the Google Maps, this is the port of Novorossiysk and Grushovaya Balka is here. You may see lots of the oil tanks. It's not the first time, it's not the last time Ukraine is visiting this very important facility. Oil is being distributed here by pipe, and also there is a railway transport. Yeah, this supply connection, I guess, also was damaged together with the tanks, and let's check out the image itself. Here we go, it's from the channel Supernova Plus, definitely the portal to hell. Everything is burning there, you may see the smoke is coming from the port itself, and also in Grushovaya Balka in the mountains. So it's like a new volcano, you may call it a Novorossiysk volcano, since the port and city of Novorossiysk is very close. Wow, this fire is hard to eliminate and it spreads from one oil tank to another. A pretty much usual picture for the Russian Caucasus oil ports before it was Tuapse and now Novorossiysk. Yeah, I think this port and oil storage itself is disabled for a very long time. I think we need to wait for a couple of more days for the fire to over, and also satellite image that would present the information of what particularly was hit there, but I'm sure that not all of the oil tanks were kaboomed. As it usually happens with those ports, the main oil storage of, for example, Feodosia was fully annihilated by Ukrainian drones, but Ukraine had attacked that facility for, I think, 5 or 6 times. So is it something unusual for those Russians who live there? Already not. In Novorossiysk, I think they got used to all of those strikes and kabooms. In the port of Novorossiysk, before Russia lost air defense systems, they are located over here. At least 6 units were cancelled by Ukrainian drone and Neptune strikes. The oil port infrastructure was attacked several times, as well as the Russian military. So those are the Russian military ships, and we might remember that one of the submarines, which is parked, well, it is not parked here, it is parked now here, it was damaged by Ukrainian underwater drone. So Novorossiysk is constantly under Ukrainian strikes. And this image just for you to see the scale of the fire and how high that storage really is relative to the ground level. So actually big mountains, yeah. And it is filmed from the very far distance. But the glow is huge. I would like to check out the videos from the place itself, from the storage, but locals who work there, they didn't post those videos yet, at least, and eyewitnesses, well, they filmed just the glow and the smoke, because the storage itself is hidden by the mountains. My friends, just a short reminder as usual, please press like to this video while you're watching it, and also subscribe for the channel. If you have been subscribed, check out your subscription, because YouTube may for whatever reason unsubscribe you. Yeah, it happens. And if you can, you may follow me on Patreon, the link for it is in the video description right below, or join membership of YouTube channel by pressing button join. My friends, you're awesome, you're the best, with your help you're making my job possible. Now, let's continue with the video. Ossens are saying that Krasnoarmeyska Operation Dispatcher Station in Saratov region and Krasnoyar Line Operation Dispatcher Station in the Volgograd regions were also attacked overnight, according to Supernova. Yeah, we just have those satellite images without real consequences, so I'm waiting for the actual evidence, but locals definitely reported about those strikes, however, without any videos presented. The last night, Ukrainian drones also visited Mariupol. Eyewitnesses filmed this picture. So far, I'm out of clue what was hit there. Locals report about maybe substation, but I'm not sure, because different information is coming from the different places. Alexonova Plus report about it. How they take those images? Well, they go through the Russian chats, and people there sometimes post something. Those are the drones range in Sochi. Sochi is one of the biggest tourist places in all Russia. So there is no strike, nothing is happening really. Well, it happened, but far away, in Novorossiysk, and not only. But here's just a drone alert, and maybe those Russians, they came from the regions where drone alerts is not the usual thing, so they try to evacuate from the beach. Yeah, Sochi emergency evacuation from the beach yesterday due to drone attack, but the attack didn't happen, attack itself, just sirens. Also, there is the information that the radar system was damaged in Krasnodarsky Krai, so the place where Sochi is, and Novorossiysk. And you know what? Russia takes precautions. They're boosting air defense systems. Yeah, that's what Putin says. We're gonna improve our air defense capabilities, and they definitely deploy air defense systems to protect their vulnerable oil infrastructure, their military bases, and so on. Well, about the military bases, I am joking, because it is Moscow, yes. Putin is boosting the air defense of Moscow, not of the rest of the Russia. You see, they put it just on one of the buildings in Moscow. This is Panzer S1 system, not on KAMAZ truck, but as the separate unit. It's been placed on the building, yeah, and the building becomes a legitimate target for Ukrainian drones in this case. Very nice. Russia is boosting air defense where it needs the most, because Putin is in Moscow. A Ukrainian drone has been spotted this morning in one of the Russian airfields in Rostov-on-Don Oblast. Boom. Shit happens. FP1 hit the hangars of the research and production centers for the development and production of UAVs at Prostasovo airfield in Rostov region. Dnipro-Osint reports about that, and we have the real evidence that it happened like that. This kaboom happened in Belgorod region. You may see a very huge cloud. There is the ammunition facility. Probably Iskander missiles were hit, and definitely those were missiles with the rocket fuel, because those traces are usually coming from rocket fuel, then the air defense system kabooms or something like that. Well, it's too much for the air defense. Local channels and military bloggers report about the ammunition storage for the Russian Iskanders. And each Iskander missile is very, very expensive. Yeah, definitely it's way more than the simple air defense system. It's very huge. And this photo was taken from the very far distance. There is the forest, and this is the mushroom cloud itself with the traces from the close perspective. And here we have a video. Again, Belgorod Oblast, a few dozens kilometers away from Ukraine, not thousands, dozens. Belgorod Oblast is bordering Ukraine, and Russia keeps their munition storages there to hit something in Ukraine, like Ukrainian military bases, Ukrainian infrastructure, Ukrainian civilian objects in Kiev, for example. That is what Russia does with those ballistic missiles like Iskanders. And here is one of the cargo vessels that was hit by Ukrainian drones. We have detailed video showing that the ship went on fire. It's partially went underwater, and of course it's no go. It was hit near Ukrainian occupied territory of Berdyansk port. I would not recommend anyone to visit Ukraine without Ukraine's permission, especially occupied territories. If you work for Russians, you are a legitimate target for Ukrainian drones. It should be understandable, I guess, absolutely for everyone. And here's the cargo vessel that was hit by Ukrainian drone in Ukrainian territorial waters, but those waters are now being occupied. The ship's name is Zircon. It was registered somewhere in the islands and operated by the Russian company and foreign crew members from Azerbaijan. Several of the crew members lost their lives. Well, I guess that other sailors will also look at what happens, and they will not sign the contract with the Russian companies any longer, especially those ones who operate in occupied territories. And this is St. Petersburg. An arsenal factory went on fire for whatever reason. Locals are saying that it wasn't because of the drone strike. Could it be a sabotage? Because Arsenal factory is in the sanction list and it is working to produce military components for the Russian army. On this video is just the beginning of the fire. Later on it spread around to the wider zone. It added some drama to the scenery. An interesting article from the Telegraph. They say that Putin has missed his last chance to get out the war without complete defeat. Just 1 year ago, legacy media were saying that the situation for Ukraine is difficult. Now they say that it is difficult for Russia, and it is visible, I guess, for absolutely everyone. Russia bogged down on the front lines. They are under constant Ukrainian long-range drone strikes. Their logistics is also suffering. So in the article, they say that Putin refused to negotiate directly with Zelensky, and Kyiv believe that in the future price for Moscow will only grow More losses, more failures on the front, and less room for bargaining. And I believe, yes, it's like that. Also, Ukraine is preparing ballistic missiles, FP7, FP9. Ukraine's European allies increasingly see the situation the same way. The diplomatic window for Kremlin is narrowing, so Ukraine has an upper hand. The main conclusion is simple: the longer Putin drags out the war, the less it resembles a struggle under condition of peace and the more attempt to postpone the inevitable. By the way, today Zelensky confirmed himself that the Russian oligarch businessman Abramovich visited him recently in Kiev and they discussed the possible future scenarios. Well, he received the message from Putin, from what I understood, and he also passed his message to Putin via Abramovich. And I think so, it's my conspiracy theory, but Abramovich and Zelensky discussed this public letter that Zelensky later on published a few days after the meeting with Abramovich, and the letter went kind of viral, and even now Russian officials are quoting it. For example, Lavrov says that those letters should not be public, the respectable people do not show everything of that on public, no. Respectable people do not start wars, first of all, Mr. Lavrov. And in the letter itself, Zelensky warns Putin that Ukraine will intensify the strikes. If Russia doesn't want to negotiate, Ukraine could soon hit Russia with ballistics. And the letter was addressed not just for Putin, it was addressed also to the Russian elite, Russian business circles. Zelensky wants to show to the Russian elite that the situation will go even worse and there is no return back to your previous lives, to your villas abroad, unless you get rid of Putin somehow. And the military support of Ukraine continues. There was the meeting between Zelensky and leaders of Germany, United Kingdom and France. They discussed the further actions. And they agreed 5 key principles of how to stop hostilities and the war itself. So a ceasefire should be full, the end of hostiles. That is what Putin personally refuses to do, but Ukraine has already agreed on that and calling Putin to stop the war. The current front line will serve as the basis for further negotiations, so similar to what it was with Minsk agreements, I guess, but Ukraine will obtain some sort of the guarantees, so international security guarantees for Ukraine after a ceasefire. Awesome, but what kind of those guarantees could be at this stage, it is unknown. Next, Russian frozen assets will remain restricted until aggression ends and repatriations are paid. So, frozen forever, I guess. Next, all agreements must ensure the security of the European continent. Well, general blah 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 I would say about the European continent. It is not secured right now. There is the full-scale war, the biggest one after the Second World War. And yeah, Ukraine still doesn't obtain enough military support, but there is the support at some level, and I see a change in that support. So European Union countries are investing into Ukrainian military production itself. They also place factories on their own territories, and Ukraine exchanges the technologies with the European Union countries, the technologies which were obtained during the war. So Ukraine as the country which is using on the field those drones, for example, it may test what is more profitable for the war scenario. And Ukraine exchanges its experience with NATO and also, by the way, with the United States of America. So it plays its own positive role to boost the defense of NATO. So as the Telegraph says, the pressure on Russia will increase, of course, with Ukraine's own military production. Wow, a unique report from Al Jazeera of Ukrainian Firepoint drone company inside the manufacture facility. Let's listen to this one. I'm surprised that Al Jazeera filmed that, but anyways.
This is the beating heart of Ukraine's new strategy. Plastic, glue, and a whole lot of carbon fiber that may be changing the tide of the war. At this underground factory, the defense company Firepoint assembles hundreds of long-range drones every day. Different floors, different parts, all manufactured in secrecy. At the end, these parts come together, both the body and the wings, to make one single drone that will be launched deep inside of Russia. We've seen more and more strikes on Russian oil exports. Is that a priority?
FP1 is the long-range drones. Right now is the cheapest drones.
Dennis Stillerman is the company's co-founder. He says Firepoint's drones are now among Ukraine's most widely used weapons for strikes inside Russia.
Most of OTC done by this drone.
And the attacks have been mounting. Repeated strikes on storage terminals, refineries, and export hubs across Russia are stretching Moscow's air defenses thin. Ukraine calls them long-range sanctions, a campaign of strikes targeting the oil industry that generates roughly a quarter of Russia's state revenue, and which Ukraine says is used to fund the war. For everyday Ukrainians, the recent success on the battlefield is a welcome morale boost.
Happiness, first of all.
It's time they understand that they can be punched back and to keep their noses out of here.
Russians should also feel the war on their own skin. The war goes back to where it came from.
No longer on the back foot, Ukraine hopes the tide of the war may finally be changing in its favor. Audrey McAlpine, Al Jazeera, Ukraine.
Yeah, awesome news actually. All of them, legacy media, they're saying that Ukraine is not losing this war. It's absolutely like... I was saying it from the first time I started to film those videos, updates from Ukraine, like Ukraine has no way to lose this war, because this war is the existential one for Ukraine, first of all, and it will do absolutely everything to protect itself and to move the war on the Russian territory even. Oh, today Zelensky had the call with Kushner and Vitkov. Long time no see, Kushner, Vitkov. How is Iran doing? Have you agreed some of the deal with Iran? Or there are some of the harsh things happening, like Strait of Hormuz is still closed, Iran is launching ballistic missiles on Israel. Israel, despite what Trump was saying, like, Israel stop, but Israel retaliated on Iran, so yeah, stuff like that. But they call to Zelensky trying to resolve the war in Europe, which is unresolvable because of Putin. Well, nevertheless, Zelensky said that the conversation went very well and it was nice. What else could he say? And you know, guys, I guess Putin is already close to paranoia. Well, at least according to Financial Times, the new AI spying capabilities have scared Putin. Moscow turned off surveillance cameras after the assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in Tehran, because the information of the presence of Khamenei in particular location was obtained through surveillance cameras which were hacked by Israel. The system that protects the dictator and his inner circle was turned back on only after engineers carefully tested it, trying to isolate it from the internet. It operates separately from nearly 300,000 cameras that monitor Moscow residents. FSB Director Bortnikov said that Russia's vast surveillance apparatus has become a vulnerability. The authoritarian regime's tools for monitoring its own citizens have become a weak point that enemies now can exploit. And this is the title of the article. There were some of the rumors, but now this information is spread around that Putin himself went so scared that he left his main residence in Valdai and is hiding in the bunker. A bunker rat, as he always was, but now we see him on public many of the times already. So, of course, it's impossible to hide all the time in a bunker, but he spends there lots of the time of his activity, as Donald Trump spends in a golf course. Yeah. And the situation in Armenia, Russia lost it. There were elections just yesterday, and Pasha announced it got a majority, not the super majority, but still. All of the pro-Russian candidates, well, three major ones, they got the representatives in parliament of Armenia, but they lost it. They lost elections, and Prime Minister of Armenia will still remain the same, and he tries to change the direction of the development of the country towards the European Union, not towards Russia. And Russia has hysteria about it because they tried to rig the elections. So Pashinyan's army, I think, had more of the votes, but Russia sent those Armenians who live in Russia. They paid them to go back to Armenia for several days and to stay there on Sunday and vote. Well, Armenian military did an interesting stuff. They took the personal data of those men who were coming from Russia, and they say, okay, we'll call you in case of the war with someone here in the region, maybe with Russia itself. Well, the good thing for Armenia that there is no border with Russia. There is still the Russian military base in Gyumri, but it is pretty much isolated and it's not that huge. Russian militants will not be capable to replace the government of Armenia, of course, But they tried to, they fueled both the farms, they poured lots of the money, but Putin failed, as he failed in Moldova election, as he failed with his support of Orban, by the way, as well as Donald Trump. And Pashinyan, he's leading the country in the proper way. Yeah, not without the bombs, but the direction is good, and I'm very happy that he continued to stay as the Prime Minister of Armenia. But for Putin, of course, it's the political defeat, and before elections, Russia even restricted some of the goods from Armenia. They tried to intimidate Armenians, but Armenians understood it as the pressure on them, and they supported Pashinyan's party. So well done, Armenians, and for you I guess it will be even easier than for maybe even Ukraine, because you don't have the direct border with Russia, so you're more safe. Well guys, that's all what I want to say in this video, and please support my job on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below, or join membership of the channel by pressing button join. You're awesome. With your support my job is possible. Also, please don't forget to press like to this video and subscribe for the channel. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.